It's wonderful to participate in this great event. It's been announced and taken now more than a week, it seems, to get to its fulfillment. Thank you, Dr. Amaji, Dr. Gottfried, Minister Gottfried, thank you very much for having me here, and everyone take the time to listen to these few words about yoga, which is a huge science. It was a joy to hear the Honorable Strau describing this specific aspect of yoga. So I have to how do I get the thing moving? Good. We'd like to discuss yoga as a science, not just philosophy. It's a wonderful, profound philosophy of life. But Maharishi Mahesh Yogi has brought it to us as a science of life. And it's therefore a science of technology for perfect balance and full development. Yoga comes from Veda. Veda is a huge collection of different aspects of knowledge. The term Veda in Sanskrit means knowledge. And it's Maharishi Mahesh Yogi who recently collected all the Vedas into 40 aspects that are the science of life. So we have the main Veda is Sama Veda. We have 4 Vedas, therefore with Sama Veda, Sama, Yajur, and Atharva. And then you have the Vedangas, which are the limbs of the Veda, and the Upangas, and then you have Ayurveda, Brahmanas, Shakyas, and in them there are all these different values. They come to 40 as we see them here, and they are organized in a special way related to the knower, the process of knowing, and the known, which Maharishi describes as Rishi, Devata, and Shankara. One of these aspects, or sets, if you like, is the Upangas, the subordinate angas. They are often translated as the 6 systems of Indian philosophy: Nyaya, Vaisheshik, Samkhya, Yoga, Karma, Mimamsa, and Vedanta. Yoga, therefore, is one of the 6 systems of Indian philosophy, but more profoundly, 6 systems of science of self-development. And yoga is a very special part of that. I have had the privilege to look at each of these different aspects with Maharishi and look at them as sciences and even look at their structure and their functions and correlate this to the human physiology. So therefore here we have something that comes from cognitions, from the mind, from consciousness, and we are comparing it to the structure of the body. That is why in one of my first publications, I will just illustrate this in respect to yoga to give you an idea of what it is. First, just to say that this knowledge comes from a tradition of Vedic masters that have transmitted this from teacher to student throughout the ages. Yoga is ascribed to Maharishi Patanjali in his book, the Yoga Sutras, which is made out of 4 chapters. I think we have to move, if possible, a little bit the screen or the projector, but it's okay, we can do without it. So there are 4 chapters of yoga in that book of Patanjali. And each chapter I have found corresponds to actually one aspect of the brain, one of the 4 lobes of the brain. So our brain has 4 lobes that are very specifically defined. And each aspect of these 4 lobes correspond to one chapter of yoga. So the Samadhi path, for example, corresponds to the occipital lobe, and like that the other parts of the chapters of yoga correspond to different functions and structures in our brain. Even when we look at the individual aphorisms, because this book of yoga, the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, is made of small sentences, aphorisms we call them, and these aphorisms have a meaning, have a function. And it was possible to correlate these specific aphorisms, here they are written in Sanskrit, on the lobes of the brain with their different functions. That means really the brain is mapped according to yoga physically. So here we have a very profound relationship between the very systematic structure of yoga in its 4 chapters and its subdivisions with the subdivisions and structures of the human brain. In that same way, we have correlations between all the 40 aspects of Veda, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Samkhya, Yoga, Shiksha, Kalpa, Vyakarana, Chant. All of these values are actually corresponding and mapping of our human physiology, which means our body is built based on a blueprint, and that blueprint is found in the Veda. And this is really very profound in correlating the physical with the non-physical, the material with consciousness, physiology with intelligence. And it shows that in laws of nature that guide the functioning of our mind, the functioning of our consciousness, the dynamics of our consciousness, are the same laws of nature that construct our body. And the way we think is also related to the way we are physically even. So mind and body are one continuum rather than 2 different entities. Now the range of human life is of course varied. It goes from being, the ego, the intellect, the mind, the senses, the body, the environment, and the whole universe. This is what influences us on a daily basis. This is what really we are dealing with, not just some limited value of physical reality. Yoga is described in the Yoga Sutras in the 2nd aphorism. The first one says, now I will tell you what yoga is, and the second one says, Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha, which means yoga is the settling of the mind. Yoga, as was beautifully presented, is to join, to unite, to put together the mind, the awareness, and that means the fluctuations of the mind settling down. Ultimately, what we want is to reach the self, and to reach the self is a pure state of pure being, pure silence. It is within us, it's not something we have to search outside of us, it is within us, but it is at the same time in everything, because that is the value that unites the whole reality on the physical level from this unbounded pure aspect of pure being, which is in our own inner deep self. This chart shows, what we call it the physiology chart, shows a society, and society is made out of individuals. Individuals are made out of organ systems are made out of organs, and if you keep dissecting, you go to tissues, and then you reach molecules, the DNA, and then you come from the physical, biological level to the chemical level, and from the chemical level you go to the physical level, the physics of how chemistry is built. Chemistry is built on physics, which means how the electrons, the atoms, interact together to create molecules, and then the molecules create tissues, organs, human being, and society. So as we go down to the physical level, we find that the atoms are made of elementary particles. The elementary particles are themselves waves in fields. We have 4 major fields. The Nobel Prize was given about 55 years ago to Weinberg and Salam, who discovered that there is more unified values, that the fields are not just separate entities, but they are unified. And today we have a theory of the universe that it is all built from what we call a unified field of all the laws of nature. So if you look deeper into who you are from a physical perspective, you are molecules, you are atoms, elementary particles, and then you come to fields, and you come to ultimately one unified field, which is the field of pure existence. This is from physics perspective, modern scientific physics. It's not philosophy or theory, it's really from physics perspective. Yoga, in its supreme value, as taught by Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, And as we have seen, which is the settling of the vibrations, the settling of the excitations of the mind, is possible to reach through transcending. Transcending means to go beyond. And from the supreme knowledge of yoga, there is a technique, a technology, transcendental meditation, that allows the mind to settle down and actually experience the unified field. It experiences the field of the self. That field is the source of all that is in creation. And by enlivening that field, awakening that field, we enliven all aspects of the surface values of life. And that is why we have seen through scientific research, more than 600 scientific research, that those who practice transcendental meditation, while all aspects of their lives improve, they improve in their molecular level. We see the changes in cortisol level in the blood, different components of the blood being balanced. We see changes in the functioning of the organs of the body. There is greater health. There is more balance in the physiology. And as we will see, we also see changes and transformations in society. That is the unified field. That is the ultimate field of union, the ultimate field of yoga, where mind and body are united with soul, spirit, with everyone's inner being as well as everything in the universe. Patanjali described Ashtanga yoga. Ashtanga means the 8 limbs. The Anga is a limb. Ashtanga means 8 limbs of yoga. And they are Yam, Niyam, Asanas, Pranayam, Pratyahar, Dharana, Dhyan, and Samadhi. Some interpretations of these have said that one has to progress from one to the other because some of these at the beginning are performances of proper habits, proper life, proper mindset. Then you have the exercise system, which is Hatha Yoga, and the Asana system. Then you have the breathing systems and purification systems, ability to focus, to meditate, and ultimately to reach Samadhi. Samadhi is a state of where yoga, chitta, vritti, nirodha, which means the settlement of all excitation, and one reaches in a deep, full silence within themselves. And it has been thought that these have to progress in a sequence. It's very beautiful how Maharishi said that these are the limbs of yoga. And if you have a limbs of a body or a limbs or the leg of a chair, for example, or a table, if you pull one limb or one leg of a chair, the whole chair comes, not only one of them. So actually any one of these helps to improve all of them at the same time. Due to the quality of time, Maharishi has felt to give that supreme knowledge of yoga by immediately going to Samadhi, immediately going to the self and transcending. And then all the other aspects would improve, as we see in this chart. By going to the self, through direct transcendence of the mind, all the other aspects improve. So that state of yoga then, therefore, I would like to share with you some of the scientific research that shows how actually all of these 8 limbs of yoga are improved by one limb being attended to, which is the self transcending, going back to Samadhi. And it's something which in the Veda is very much taught, that people should think of the self, go back to the self. And it's not an intellectual process, it's not a manipulative process, it's a technology. That's why we call it a science, because it's a systematic technology that helps everybody to improve, even those who don't have greater intellectual abilities, children or older or younger people, adult, responsible people, illiterate people. They can just transcend. It's a technology, and the results are always reliably found and always found to be happening. So there are more than 500-600 scientific research studies that are well documented and that have been published. I will just go through some of them, just a faint idea. Of course, we don't have the time to go through 600 scientific research studies. And I would like just to, for the fact that we are discussing yoga to go through them in the different categories of yoga, the yam, niyam, asanas, pranayam. This way we'll have this idea of what these yoga, Ashtanga yoga is, and how all of these aspects can be improved through accessing samadhi, through accessing transcendental being, the enlightenment within. So that's why we will do this in these different values and look at the scientific research that shows how transcendental meditation develops these aspects of yoga. Yam in general is behavior, observances. The state of yoga is established when one's life is naturally upheld by the 5 qualities of Yam. The first one is Satya, truthfulness. Scientific research shows that people who practice transcendental meditation, this is also a published study compared to controls, have much higher values of morality and maturity in moral conduct. And they have reduced behavioral problems, for example, in schools. And again, I want to remind you, these are very small, short examples of the wide range effects of going to yoga, going to the self, to unity value, the transcendental value. Here we see that there is reduced behavior of behavioral problems in schools compared to absentee, like how much the students would be absent from school, that they would go against the rules of the school, or how many days they have been suspended. And we find significant decrease in people who practice transcendental meditation. The second aspect of Yam is ahimsa, which is non-violence, and also the research here shows greater altruism for those who practice transcendental meditation versus control. There is decreased tendency to assault even in prison inmates, so that even those who have initial tendency to be criminal or have been into criminal situations, when they practice transcendental meditation compared to controls, they have much less tendency to thank you so much, to assault others. Which means it's not a process where you have to tell people you should be non-violent, but their tendencies, their behavior is to be violent. Their hormones are like this, their anger is like that, their stress is like that. And no matter how much you say to them, you should not do, it really doesn't work. Even you put them into prison and then they keep doing this. You punish them and they keep doing it. But yoga helps, and this transcendental meditation, that is the yoga that allows the individual to reach these deep states. And by reaching these deep states, we have seen systematically that non-violence, ahimsa, develops naturally in the human being. The third one is asteya, non-covetousness. And here we see there is increased strength and self-concept, which meaning feeling one self-sufficient in oneself and having a great idea about oneself. We see that there is decreased in dependence on drugs, for example. That's again showing there is more integration in the mind and body and less dependence on outer values that develops again automatically. You don't have to keep telling the person you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, behave like this is not morally good, and all of that. Although these are, of course, nice things to learn and to know, but we see that automatically the person that reaches that state of pure being, that goes to the Atma, the self, then naturally becomes better, naturally behaves better, naturally is developing according to all the different values of yoga. The fourth one is brahmacharya, which means acting in a responsible way, and also means abstinence. In some cases it's translated as also celibacy, so more control of the self, getting the energy to flow in a proper way and in a balanced way. And we see here self-actualization. And we have compared this, this is published in the Journal of Social Behavior and Personality, where we have compared people who have done concentration and different contemplation techniques and other kinds of behavioral modification techniques, and those who practice transcendental meditation. And there is very, very high significance in the difference, where people who practice this yoga value, the transcendental meditation, have increased in self-actualization in their lives. They have increased self-development, again, with controls in university students and different ways and different places. Again, transcendental meditation shows significant improvement in self-development. The fifth aspect of yam, or observance, is non-possessiveness, non-greediness, and this again can be seen through decreased recidivism of prisoners and other people who commit problems and have to be incarcerated, but then when they are relieved, they come back. And here we see that whether they release after a year, 3 years, or 5 years, if they practice transcendental meditation compared to control groups, they tend not to commit problems or have difficulties any longer. The second great category of aspect of yoga is niyam, or rules of life, that improve. And niyam has also different values. The first one is purification, cleanliness of the body and mind. So what we're saying here is that these things often has been said that you have to start with this, you clean yourself, then you learn how to do breathing. Once you have done some asanas, you can go to pranayama. And then once you have done it for so many years, then you get to the next stage and you start to learn how to concentrate, and then you start to maybe practice meditation. At the end of it, you get to samadhi. So again, I'm reminding that we are actually starting with samadhi, that is the transcendence value, and all of the other values naturally and spontaneously improve. So this is some EEG patterns in the brain which show greater coherence, and this has been studied even specifically here, just to give an example, in the attention disorder and hyperactivity disease or syndrome. And again, meditation shows there is greater coherence and reduction in patterns that characterize the disturbance that is usually found in people who have ADHD. There is greater positivity in cognitive style. We see this controls before TM, after TM, and compared to controls also. On the physical level, and just to mention a few things, blood pressure, systolic blood pressure and diastolic blood pressure is improved. That is an indication of harmony in the physiology, and now we have, it's paid by the health system in the United States. It's used in all of these techniques are used. Transcendental meditation is used in prevention of disease. It's used and supported by the health system, and particularly in different army aspects of practice, post-traumatic stress syndrome, etc., because of the very profound beneficial effects. So we are talking real results on a physical, mental, and all aspects of life. Decreased, and as a result, you have decreased hospitalization, indicating healthier aging, and we have studies that show that there is rejuvenation, and people not only look younger, but physically, if you examine their biology, they have much less age biologically than chronologically. So therefore, this rejuvenation process and a healthier mind and body with aging. The second rule of Niyam is contentment, to be happy, and that is also seen in transcendental meditation when we have greater appreciation of others, and reduction teacher burnout, for example. Again, just to take some examples across the board, very important difference. The tapas is observances and discipline of the mind and body is the third aspect of Niyam. And again, the ability to be naturally controlling oneself happens. So people who, for example, we see here, have received standard treatments for cigarette smoking, they have some improvement. And there are prevention programs, serious ones, that have improved also. But people who practice transcendental meditation without having to tell them to stop smoking, they naturally have much less smoking habits, and they leave the habits that are not healthy and promoting balanced life. So decreased alcohol use is also spontaneous, and it has been done again with controlled programs. The fourth aspect is the ability to study and be of Niyam is study, Swadhyaya. And here we see there is improvement in academic performance, both in language and mathematics, and transcendental meditation groups as compared to controls. And even school graduation, more students who practice transcendental meditation actually end up graduating compared to controls. Niyam's other rule here is spirituality, surrender to higher values, to God, to the greater values of life, which improves different aspects of morality and behavior. And this is, again, independent of religion, because these people who practice transcendental meditation are from all religions and all walks of life. And we see that there are studies that actually have systems to analyze intrinsic spirituality, and we see that people who practice some of the advanced techniques, as an example of meditation, are more spiritually inclined in a natural way. And they have more satisfying relationships with themselves, with God, and with religion, whatever their practices are. It's much more harmonious, much more peaceful kind of relationship with the higher values, if you like, spirituality and the divine aspects of life. The third aspect of the third limb of Ashtanga Yoga is asanas, which is, of course, the postures and the ability to have proper posturing. And I use here just decreased medical expenses to show that people who actually are in proper posture, they have less problems in general with different physical ailments. And there is increased energy in secondary school students, as also shown by transcendental meditation, which means the physiology, the body is able to perform better and have less problems. Then comes pranayama, which is exercises for breathing. Now, again here, just to show that simply by practicing this technique, there is a change in the respiration. We don't have to force the respiration. Of course, there are techniques and they are very useful, how to breathe and learn some breathing exercises. They can be very useful. But just to show again that when one goes back into the self and is settled, naturally the breathing is softer, the breathing is more in accordance with the requirements of the body. And we know this when somebody is anxious or stressed, they breathe fast, they breathe wrong, they don't breathe well, they have apnea, they have problems. And here we see again that going back to the self creates a situation where the breathing improves, there is decreased metabolic rate in the body because the body is settled and therefore there is less need to breathe and less haphazardous, if you like, breathing. It's more soft, more normalized. And this has been studied under very many conditions in terms of respiratory volume, respiratory rhythms, etc. Pratyahara is self-sufficiency. We can translate it. There are many different ways to translate some of these terms, but they all come back to the same. And here we have, as an example, that there is, for example, improved visual perception, decreased anxiety, and then steadiness of the mind or concentration, fixity of the mind, dharana, and ability to focus. We can see this improvement, and it's a very holistic improvement in the intellectual performance, and that shows the ability to be purposeful, to do the things right, and that is in different areas: creativity, practical intelligence, field independence, which means person who is doing a job or something, and then there is distraction on the outside. They are not dependent on the outer disturbances, and that is an indication of really the ability to have dharana, to have fixity, to have purposefulness. And that happens naturally, without forcing the mind. It's just because the mind is settled and there is less stress, that you get better field independence, mental efficiency, and fluidity in thinking and in intelligence. Again, increased intelligence in students that are on a remedial program, and then increased field independence we have seen. And then we come to dhyan, which is the process of meditation. And we have different aspects that show that the metabolism is reduced, respiration rate, basal skin conductance, plasma lactate are reduced substantially. So all of these research really show an increase in coherence and balance in mind and body, and it's reflected in the brain waves and the openness of the brain from right to left, front on back. The brain is working as a holistic entity rather than individual stressed components that are fighting each other even within one individual. We have opening of the reserves of the brain, we have studies that show that, and great coherence in brain activity. That is again another study of brain integration and EEG coherence. And the last one of the 8 is samadhi, which is transcendental consciousness or pure awareness, the state of enlightenment. And again, here we see that those who practice the techniques of yoga, transcendental meditation, that is the technique that's been studied, have greater ability to have EEG coherence and maintain it for a longer period of time, indicating great stability in consciousness. And it has been correlated with subjective experiences, people who experience that settled state of being, in terms of even having coherence while acting, which is really rare. You can act, the brain is engaged in a specific task, it calls upon specific parts to act, and yet those who have advanced in this technique maintain their evenness. As Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, equanimity is maintained even while acting. Established in yoga, perform action. Yoga sta kuru karmani, established in being, then your action is efficient, but established in being is a physiological thing also, which can be seen through the coherence that is happening in the brain. It's really very important and very significant, and that's what we can call silence and dynamism, which means there is silence inward, one is undisturbed, even outside one is very active and dynamic. And that's a very important factor, because many have interpreted yoga or enlightenment as being lethargy and not active and all of that. But what we have seen is there is greater dynamism, greater performance, greater ability to act and to be effective in one's action, while at the same time maintaining this silent inner self. Established in yoga, established in being, perform action. Yoga sta, kuru karmani. So we want that establishment in being so that the action also becomes effective. So yoga is for active, dynamic, successful people. Yoga is not just to hide in a cave and go away from activity and responsibility. And that's the beauty of it all around, and its profound effects for all aspects of life. What is very interesting one to add this is that all of this reflects also in society. And Maharishi said, we must see a difference in society when a number of people start practicing these techniques, because that unified field of natural law, that self of everyone, unifies us all. We are one, actually, ultimately. When you go back to your real deep self, not the small self, but the big self, you go back to the self of everything, to the self of everybody. And therefore you enliven this. And if a number of people enliven this in society, the whole society changes. And we've done a very large number of studies on this that show that there is decreased homicide, there is decreased violence, and anywhere in society when there is a number of people practicing these techniques of transcendental meditation. And this has been studied and even reported in some journals. We had a huge study in the Journal of Conflict Resolution. The scientists were so strict. They said, we cannot believe that this can happen, but the science is so good and so accurate, and the scientists are so precise that we have to publish it. So they published something which is very unusual, And that is to say that if some people sitting and meditating together or doing their meditation advanced programs, there will be crime somewhere that is not going to happen. There is reduction in problems in society, there is improvement in balance in society. And this is really beautiful. Therefore, this yoga aspect, the unity value, when reached and experienced, creates effects throughout society. So we go back to wholeness of life, being nourished from the mind, the body, the intellect, consciousness, the whole physiology of the individual and society, and in fact, our whole life between nations can improve and be made more balanced, more peaceful, and more happy through yoga. So yoga is a very practical science of life for every individual and every society. And all the religions and great sages of the world ultimately said the same thing, and that is one thing I want to end with, and that is we are really having totality within us. And when we open ourselves to our full true nature, then that totality zooms in, creativity comes, balance comes, and peace comes. In the Veda it says, as is the atom, so is the universe, as is the body, so is the cosmic body, yatha pinde tatha brahmante. Vedoham, I am the Veda, I am totality, tattvamasi, you are that, everyone is that. And as we said, everyone comes from bliss, and from bliss they are sustained, in bliss they grow and go and merge. And all of this is totality, but in other also wisdoms, they say the nature of heaven belongs to man in the Tao. In the Bible, man was created in the image of God. God created man in his own image. In the New Testament, the kingdom of heaven is within you. In the Quran and on earth are signs of God for those of assured faith. They are within you. Do you not perceive? In a beautiful poem by the Imam Ali, and consider yourself to be a small atom, yet the whole universe is folded within you. And all of this greatness that all sages, all religions, all prophets, all great inspired people talked about can be developed through yoga, through full yoga, through integration of mind and body. And Maharshi's blessing to us and from the holy tradition of Vedic masters to give us a scientific way, a reliable, repeatable, scientific way to actually achieve this for every individual in every walk of life. And I really want to again congratulate everyone who's interested in this field, because it's not just a mere philosophical belief system. It is a very profound technology to save us from a lot of troubles, some of which the world is facing today, and all kinds of troubles that we have even in expenses, in economy, in health, and budgets that are not being able to be balanced. All we need is to change the individual by not changing their real self, but by bringing them back to their real self. So it's not looking for a transformation outside, but for a transformation inside, and all aspects of life will improve. And again, I'm so honored and happy and proud to be with you, and to thank you for this opportunity, and hope that together, as Amarjitji said, we can really be of use to society. It's not we are here to propagate a belief system or a system at all. It's just to offer a science and a knowledge that can help improve all aspects of life. Thank you very much. Dr. Gotru, it's my honor if you would like to accept my book of Veda and Human Physiology, to thank you for this.
Magnus, thank you so much for that absolutely enlightening knowledge. You see how definitive this work is, that's been put together by Professor Nehru and His Holiness Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. And this is exactly the stuff that we need so that our institutions can understand what we're talking about. And so as I had requested earlier, it would be really fascinating that we could be Kundalini Yoga, and we could be Hatha Yoga, we could be Ashtanga Yoga, we could be all various forms of yoga that are being practiced on the planet. But again, going back to my example of mala, let all these variations of yoga be embodied in a rosary, in a mala. And I would urge Professor Nader and Jayaji and all other personalities who are here today. My own master used to say, it's not the quantity, it's the quality that you need to sort of bring in your life. So we have some very high-profile speakers here this afternoon, Your Holiness, and it would be really fascinating, I know we have conference on Ayurveda and we have conferences on yoga, but what really would be fantastic is to have like a 2-day symposium, convention or a conference on Indian traditional sciences, so where we have snippets of everything, and then maybe 2 years, 3 years down, 2 years down the road, and then invite key policymakers and staff, and people from the National Health Service, especially here in the UK, so that they can try and understand this through this wonderful language of yours. I'm so much indebted to your time for here to be with us this morning. There is some of you might have come across this blue brochure. And that basically is a synopsis of Professor Nader's speech here this morning. And I urge all of you to please take one, and in time, in your quality time, to please read this. Thank you. Right. So, as you know, we're running a little bit late, as is always the situation. But I just really also want to highlight a couple of things which are in this program that we handed out to you this morning. There's a message in here from His Excellency, the Deputy High Commissioner, Mr. Dinesh Patnaik, who unfortunately is at another meeting, but is so eloquently represented here in the form of Minister Srinivas Kothuru. Mr. Srinivas Kothuru is a minister at a Government of India level, but he also has an additional charge of running the institution where we are this morning at the Nehru Center. So we're absolutely privileged to have Mr. Kothuru with us. And there is a letter of support, as you can see in the manual here, from the High Commission. And the APPG is absolutely delighted to have that stinting support, from the High Commission, and hopefully we're looking forward to receiving the Indian High Commissioner together with yourself, Minister Kothuru, on the 10th of July at the Houses of Parliament.
What time is that?
Sorry?
What time is that?
Between 2 and 4. And there's also a message in here from Dr. Nagendra. As you may have heard of his name. Traditionally he's known as the yoga guru to His Excellency the Prime Minister of India. He's a Chancellor at the SYASA University in Bangalore, so he has also been supporting the initiatives of the All-Party Parliamentary Group for a number of years, especially since the initiation of the International Day of Yoga initiated by Prime Minister Modi at the United Nations. So he works very close with the APPG, and we're very delighted that on this occasion that he was able to send us a message which is incorporated in the program here, as well as Dr. Robin, what's the name? Dr. Monroe, that's right. Dr. Michael Dixon. Dr. Michael Dixon. Dr. Michael Dixon is a very senior doctor here in the United Kingdom, and he's the personal doctor to His Royal Highness Prince Charles. The APPG and Dr. Dixon have had a few meetings together, and you'll be pleased to know that at some stage in the next few weeks, he's arranged a meeting with the members of the Europe Parliamentary Group and His Highness Prince Charles. So that's something to look forward to. And so we're going from strength to strength with the All Party Parliamentary Group, trying to leave no stone unturned. At least in this lifetime, we have this opportunity to leave, something for future generations. And Dr. Dixon obviously, was very apologetic that he couldn't make it here in person, but he was. We are very grateful that he actually sent us a very kind message here. And at some stage, I'd like these messages to be read. So, shall we move on with the program? Is that okay? Yeah. So I'm going to invite Dr. Anjali Joshi. She's going to be moderating the next 3 speakers. And she will introduce the speakers, and she will moderate the session, and then there'll be a few minutes of questions and answers.